Today, we are diving deep into The Secret. You've probably heard of it. It was this massive cultural phenomenon that promised to unlock the one great power that shapes our entire lives. So what's it all about? Let's get into it.
But let's start with a question that I think we can all relate to. Have you ever noticed that the more you worry about something, the more it seems to happen? You're laser focused on not being late, and boom, you hit every single red light. You're trying so hard not to get sick, and suddenly, you've got a cough. Well, according to The Secret, that's not just bad luck. There's a reason for it.
The book actually has a name for this. It calls it the don't want epidemic. It's this idea that, as humans, we have a habit of focusing all of our mental energy, our thoughts and our words, on the very things we're trying so desperately to avoid.
So here's the logic behind it, and this is really the core of the whole thing. The book says there's a fundamental law of the universe, and this law, well, it doesn't process negative words. It literally doesn't hear the word don't. It only picks up on the subject of your thought. So when you're thinking, I don't want to be late, the universe just hears late, and it sends more delays your way to match that thought.
Okay, so if focusing on what we don't want is the big problem, what's the solution? How do we flip the script? Well, that brings us right to the main event, the central idea of the entire book, the law of attraction.
Now, it's really important to get this next part. The book presents this not as some kind of self-help trick or positive thinking mantra, but as a law of physics, just as real and as fundamental as gravity. The idea is that every single one of your thoughts is sending out a magnetic signal, a frequency, and that frequency attracts matching frequencies back to you in the form of people, circumstances, and events in your life. And they're quick to point out that this isn't some new age idea they just cooked up. They pull quotes from thinkers like Charles Haanel, going back over 100 years, to show that this is ancient, powerful wisdom that's just been kind of forgotten or hidden from most of us.
All right, so the theory makes sense. Like attracts like. But how do you actually use it? How do you make it work for you? Well, the book lays out a really practical 3-step process for creating the life you actually want.
But first, to get your mindset right, you have to stop thinking about struggle and hard work. Instead, the book tells you to imagine you're Aladdin. You have this cosmic genie, and that's the universe. And this genie doesn't judge your wishes, it doesn't question them. Its one and only job is to hear what you're focusing on and say, your wish is my command. So here are the actual mechanics. Step 1 is to ask. This isn't about vague wishing, it's about getting absolutely crystal clear on what you want. Step 2 is believe, and this is often the toughest part for people. It means you have to act, speak, and think as if you have already received the thing you asked for. And then finally, step 3 is to receive. This isn't just sitting back and waiting. It's about actively generating the feelings of joy and gratitude that you would feel if your wish had already come true. So, the big question is, does any of this actually work? Well, the book is absolutely packed with anecdotes and stories from people who claim that they used this exact process to get some pretty extraordinary results.
Let's start with maybe one of the most famous stories from the book, which comes from a guy named John Assaraf. Okay, so here's the story. Assaraf was really into making what he called vision boards, basically just collages of all the things he wanted to achieve. On one of them, he pasted a picture of his absolute dream house. So years go by, he moves a few times, life happens, and one day he's unpacking some old boxes and he finds that vision board. And he just freezes. He realized that at that exact moment, he was living in the exact house from the picture. He had bought it and renovated it without ever making the connection.
And that story is used to really hammer home the incredible power of visualization. By constantly seeing his goal as if it were already finished, he was basically living in that believe step. The book argues that this kind of detailed imagination, well, that's the actual key that unlocks the door to getting what you've asked for.
Of course, you can't talk about The Secret without talking about money, right? The book dives into a bunch of techniques for shifting your whole financial reality, for moving from a feeling of lack to a feeling of true abundance.
Here's this really fascinating and kind of simple technique from the author herself. She was getting super anxious about a pile of bills, so she decided to play a little game. She would pretend that all her bills were actually checks coming to her. Instead of feeling dread when she opened them, she'd force herself to feel joy. She'd even imagine adding a 0 to the amount, feel incredible gratitude, and then happily pay the bill. The whole point was to completely change her emotional frequency when it came to money.
And the result of this little mindset shift? Well, the book reports that after the film version came out, they were just flooded with stories. People from all over started writing in, saying they tried these techniques and then out of the blue, started receiving unexpected checks in the mail. It was presented as proof that changing your feelings about money can literally change your financial reality.
But when you really boil it down, this isn't just about getting more stuff. The final, ultimate message of The Secret is about a huge, fundamental shift in how you see yourself and your place in the universe. I think this quote from Lisa Nichols just captures the whole essence of it. It's arguing that you are not a victim of your circumstances, you are the sole author of your life story. The power to create your reality, your joy, your destiny, it rests completely and totally with you.
And maybe this is the idea that ties it all together. The book elevates imagination from just simple daydreaming to being the most powerful creative force that you have. By quoting Einstein, it frames this not as some fantasy, but as a profound truth. What you can vividly imagine, you can bring into your life. And so we end right there with the book's central, most empowering idea. If your imagination is literally the preview of your life's coming attractions, then the final question it leaves you with is this: what will you choose to create next?